Since the existence of mankind, there has always been a series of war. From fists, stones, swords, guns, and now AI. Dive with us in this series to explain the different untold stories of war all over the world. Today, we are diving into what is considered the 50th best military operation ever. Operation Uphold Democracy in Haiti. Remember to subscribe and comment what you think is the 49th best military operation, as we are creating the series of the best 50 military operation of the 20th century.
Operation Uphold Democracy was a United States-led multinational military intervention in Haiti in 1994, conducted with the stated aim of restoring the country's democratically elected government after a violent military coup. While it did not involve large-scale combat, it remains one of the most significant examples of coercive diplomacy backed by credible military force in the late 20th century. To understand the operation, it is essential to begin with the political context. In December 1990, Haiti held its first genuinely free and fair election. Jean-Bertrand Aristide, a former Catholic priest with strong popular support among the poor, won a landslide victory. However, less than a year later, in September 1991, Aristide was overthrown by a military coup led by Lieutenant General Raoul Cedras. What followed was a period of brutal military rule marked by repression, human rights abuses, and economic collapse. The coup regime dismantled democratic institutions, targeted Aristide supporters, and triggered a massive refugee crisis. Tens of thousands of Haitians fled by sea toward the United States, creating both a humanitarian emergency and a domestic political issue for Washington. Over the next 3 years, diplomatic efforts, sanctions, and negotiations failed to persuade the Haitian military to step down. By 1994, the situation had reached a breaking point. The United Nations Security Council authorized the use of force under Resolution 940, marking the first time the UN explicitly sanctioned an invasion to restore a democratically elected government. The United States assembled a multinational coalition, with forces primarily from the US, but also including troops from Caribbean nations, Canada, and France. The operation was named Uphold Democracy, a title reflecting its political purpose rather than its military character. From the outset, U.S. planners emphasized overwhelming force, speed, and psychological dominance rather than combat. The intent was clear: compel the Haitian military leadership to step aside without fighting, while maintaining the ability to defeat resistance decisively if necessary. The military plan involved a two-pronged approach. The primary effort was a large airborne assault by the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division, prepared to parachute directly into Port-au-Prince. Simultaneously, a U.S. Marine Corps amphibious force stood ready to land on the Haitian coast. Naval forces surrounded the island, and air superiority was absolute. In total, over 20,000 U.S. troops were committed to the operation. As the invasion force moved toward Haiti in September 1994, the United States escalated. Former President Jimmy Carter, Senator Sam Nunn, and General Colin Powell were dispatched to Port-au-Prince as last-minute negotiators. Their mission was simple: convince the Haitian military leadership that resistance was futile and that exile was preferable to destruction. The timing of this mission was deliberate. While negotiations were underway, U.S. airborne units were already in the air, en route to Haiti. Some aircraft carrying paratroopers reportedly crossed the point of no return, where turning back would have been more dangerous than continuing. This was coercive diplomacy in its purest form. Negotiations conducted under the shadow of imminent invasion. The strategy worked. On the 18th of September, 1994, just hours before the airborne assault was to begin, the Haitian military leadership agreed to step down. Raoul Cedras accepted exile, and the junta agreed to relinquish power. The invasion was halted midair, and Operation Uphold Democracy transitioned from a forced entry to an unopposed deployment. U.S. forces entered Haiti without resistance. What followed was not a battle, but an occupation and stabilization mission. American troops secured key infrastructure, disarmed elements of the Haitian military, and worked to restore basic order. Aristide was returned to power in October 1994, completing the operation's primary political objective. From a military perspective, Uphold Democracy was notable precisely because of what did not happen. There were no major firefights. Casualties were minimal. The show of force alone achieved compliance. This made the operation an important case study in deterrence, coercion, and the use of military power as a political instrument rather than a purely kinetic one. However, success on paper did not translate into lasting stability. While the Haitian army was dissolved, no effective replacement security force was immediately established. Armed groups, criminal networks, and political violence continued to plague the country. International peacekeepers and aid organizations remained for years, yet Haiti's institutions remained fragile. Critics argue that Uphold Democracy treated symptoms rather than causes. The operation restored an elected president, but did little to address Haiti's deep structural problems: extreme poverty, weak governance, corruption, and dependence on external aid. Aristide himself would later be accused of authoritarian tendencies and corruption, further complicating the legacy of the intervention. From a strategic standpoint, the operation raises difficult questions. Was military intervention justified to restore democracy? Did the presence of overwhelming force undermine Haitian sovereignty? Was the mission too narrowly focused on regime restoration rather than long-term nation building? Supporters argue that the intervention prevented further human rights abuses, stopped mass refugee flows, and upheld international norms against military coups. They point to the UN mandate and the lack of resistance as evidence of legitimacy. Critics counter that the operation demonstrated the limits of military power in achieving political and social transformation. While the invasion succeeded, Haiti remained unstable, suggesting that democracy cannot be imposed externally without sustained institutional support. Militarily, Uphold Democracy influenced future operations. It reinforced the idea that credibility, scale, and speed can be decisive even without combat. The operation demonstrated the value of joint forces, rapid deployment, and psychological dominance. It also highlighted the importance and risk of last-minute diplomacy conducted alongside military action. The near-airborne assault became emblematic of a new post-Cold War model: wars that might not be fought, invasions that succeed by threatening rather than executing violence. In that sense, Uphold Democracy belongs to a category of operations that blur the line between war and peace. It was not a humanitarian intervention in the traditional sense, nor was it a conventional military campaign. It was a political intervention backed by the credible threat of force. Its legacy remains mixed. On one hand, it stands as one of the few examples where an elected government was restored through international military action with minimal bloodshed. On the other, Haiti's continued instability casts doubt on the long-term effectiveness of the intervention. Ultimately, Operation Uphold Democracy illustrates both the power and the limits of modern military intervention. It shows how force can compel compliance, but also how enduring political outcomes depend on far more than soldiers and aircraft. In the final analysis, Uphold Democracy was a tactical and operational success, a diplomatic victory achieved at gunpoint, but a strategic lesson in the complexity of rebuilding states after intervention.